Man serving time for the death of his father, Dr. Martin Luther King.
Long anticipated visit.
The youngest son wanted to look into the eyes of a terminally ill James Earl Ray and ask one question in particular.
Did you kill my father?
No, I didn't know.
And then King offered this.
I believe you, and my family believes you, and we are going to do everything in our power to try and make sure that justice will prevail.
Their meeting became a one-hour friendly encounter. King and Ray sat only 3 feet across from one another. King listened intently to a frail 69-year-old Ray who was battling liver disease. They talked briefly about Ray's health and of hope that the courts will soon give Ray the trial he never had. In 1969, Ray confessed to killing Dr. King, but later recanted, saying he was framed. Over the years, Ray has tried unsuccessfully to get a trial. Last February, the King family testified in Memphis to help reopen the case. An appellate court is now considering the request. Prison doctors have said without a liver transplant, Ray has only months to live, and no donor has been made available. That continues to heighten the King family's concern. Ray may never tell his version of the truth in court. After the meeting, King said it was a success.
I can now feel somewhat relieved that, I heard with my own ears, I saw with my own eyes, not relying on a third party.
He said it was an experience the King family hoped would bring some closure, and Dexter King says for him, it did. Frederica Whitfield, NBC News, Nashville.
Dexter King, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Take me back to the moment when you reached out and shook James Earl Ray's hand. What was that like?
It was very moving, a feeling of relief to finally meet face-to-face with the man who has been accused, but has since, from the beginning, said he was innocent. I continue to hear that he confessed, and in fact, he didn't confess. He pled guilty, which is different, technically speaking.
So when you asked him, did you kill my father, in no uncertain terms, and he said no?
Hey everyone, welcome to the 1804 show, chapter 2. I'm your host, Dollar Will, and this is another episode of 1804 History. So this evening, we talk about the son of the great late Martin Luther King Jr., Dexter King, visits his alleged father's killer, James Earl Ray, back in 1997. And I know that this is like new to everybody because I had a whole bunch of different episodes planned out, but this caught my attention. And I was just really intrigued just how this is not really brought up in this era. When we discussing Dr. King, when we discussing civil rights, when we discussing Black history, this is really left out in the story. And I just think that I needed to touch on it because I have a great deal of respect for Dr. King and the way that he sacrificed himself for us. And it really makes me mad just how we disrespect him. We disrespect our heroes, our leaders, and we don't give them their credit as much. We make them as if they cautionary tales, and we have to make sure in this generation and beyond that these men are solidified forever. So I felt like I needed to talk about this and felt like people needed to hear this because just as a man, as a son who father was assassinated for preaching nonviolence and was considered the most dangerous Negro in the country back in 1963, but also a husband, also a father, also a pastor, civil rights leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner, the whole nine. So when it comes to great black men, Dr. King up there, and he really needs to be celebrated more and not used as a manufacturer individual to sell or generate millions of dollars. But I don't know if I could have done what he done. And just the fact that he was able to talk to everybody, because I'm pretty sure when he had this idea to go meet his father's alleged killer in prison, that he was supported by it at first, because a whole lot of people was upset with him about that. A whole lot of people was like, what you want to meet him for? He killed your father. You sound crazy right now. You delusional. But I believe that it was just something that he had to do to clear his conscience. And he was just determined to find out for himself, which a man has to do at a certain point of his life, is to get that closure so he can be able to live on with his life. But yeah, just no one ever sit back and think about the people that become affected by loved ones being killed, being murdered. You know, you just want some answers. You just want some type of, I would say, clarity when certain things happen. And he was only, I would say, 35 years old. So as a 35-year-old who decided to meet the person that killed your father, is some guts. And on March 27, 1997, Dexter King arrived at the prison that's in Nashville to meet James Earl Ray, who was at the time 69 years old, battling cancer. And he sat with him for over an hour, and he asked him, "Did you kill my father?" And he said, "No." And he said, "I believe you, my family believes you, and we're going to do our part to make sure you get a new trial." So it was just a whole bunch of criticism, not only for or from the media, but it came from all angles. Even the people that made money off his dad's legacy and made careers of using his father's image, his father's speeches, his father's philosophy to become big names. And I can't just digest it in a way of, how can you criticize me? This was my dad. If anybody knows him, it's me. And this is what he would want. He would want me to carry this grudge or carry this huge amount of hate towards certain individual if I never sat and looked at this man in the face. But yeah, the King family was completely devastated after losing Martin and had to go on with their lives and just be able to, grow up without their father, And I'm going to say this to anybody and everybody who disrespect Dr. King and believe certain rumors, believe certain rhetoric. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves, and we gotta put an end to all of that. We're not our ancestors. because we would never be our ancestors, because our ancestors was always tougher than us. They did things in order for us to be able to have the privileges that we have today, be able to make our choices, to be able to be leaders and be able to have a voice. And I just be disgusted of how could anybody who have did so much for our people could just be a end of someone's joke or someone's, like, you should never have any hate-filled will or ill will against anybody who had sacrificed their life for you and missed out on his family. That should really should sit back and make you think like, damn, he was only 39 years old. And even in this era, even today, looking at that as being 36 years old, I sit back and think about, damn, he was young. You know what I'm saying? Well, you don't know how young 39 years old is until you in your 30s. You sit back like, damn, he was only 39 years old when he got killed. He didn't make it to 40. You know what I mean? People making it to 40 now, and he didn't get the chance or the opportunity to live to be 40. And we are so ungrateful at times. And that's why I make sure that I strive to be the best that I can be, put my own self by my own bootstraps, and to be able to do this commentary off the strength that, you know, I'm not perfect and I don't do everything righteously, but I'm not going to be lazy. I'm not going to sit on my ass and blame everybody else for my shortcomings or my problems, my issues, when I have the ability to change and turn things around. Killed. He was assassinated for no reason. And the only reason I could only think of was the fact that he was too powerful. Because anybody that's powerful, that's a black, that's a great orator, you're going to be taken out. You're going to be criticized the most, you know what I'm saying, first, because you got to be guilty in the court of public opinion. And the last year of his life, they hated his guts. He was in the newspapers almost every week because of what he stood for about the country and the war on Vietnam. And he was going to change the game. Because when he got into politics, that's when he was killed. When he got into politics and economics and about to start the Poor People's Campaign, that's why he was in Memphis. And also for the sanitation strike. But it just makes me sit back and think about why the city of Memphis. You know, what was the end game here of Memphis being the place that, okay, we're gonna to get this started. You know, we're gonna make sure he don't leave Memphis. That's a question that people need to ask themselves, because he been everywhere in the United States, but why Memphis? And let's just sit back and really just think about those type of things. Because why LA? Why not Miami? Why not Detroit? Why not but Memphis, you know, of all places? But I just think that we should always pay homage to anybody who was on the front lines, who was marching, who was going to jail, being assaulted for our rights to vote, for our rights to be treated fairly, not criticized or cross-examined as who they truly were behind closed doors with the affairs and the rumors and all this other stuff. But it's just at the end of the day, it takes strength to put your life on the line. So when you sit back and really think about who truly suffered, I would say both parties suffered because of the fact that one went on with his life without his father and the other one lost his freedom. And I deeply believe that it was a setup. It was just the okie doke. It was conspiracy this whole time, and it wouldn't come out until 2 years after that interview, after that meeting, that the CIA, the United States government, had a hand of killing Dr. King because they wanted to paint this picture of a white segregationist that did it, but James Earl Ray was from the Midwest. He was from Illinois. And because of the fact that he broke out of prison, they wanted to make him as the culprit. But he wasn't even in Memphis the time of the assassination. He was somewhere else. And more than likely, the time of the assassination doesn't match with the actual assassination because 6:10 was the time that the 911 dispatcher was called and picked up the emergency, but it happened way earlier than that. But all I know is that people knew what was going down. Even people that was associated with Dr. King knew what was going down. And it's just a damn shame that the truth really don't want to be appeared or don't want to come out because of the fact that a lot of people are going to be held accountable. But to take out a man that just wanted to make sure that every black or African American was treated fairly got killed. And we need to quit with this I have a dream stuff, and because Dr. King was more than that. Dr. King just wanted all of us to have jobs with equal pay, wanted us to vote, wanted us to go to school, wanted us to eat at the same restaurants. He just wanted us to be equal. And it's just mainly be black people that just enjoy shitting on what he stood for and trying to change the narrative of what he stood for. But he stood for injustice, and it was injustice to be able to make sure even us and the people under us had the same opportunities as our counterparts. But yeah, this story really was courageous to me, and it just sit back and made me think about what I can do in today's time. How can I have the strength to go up to somebody that wronged me or somebody that I feel oppresses me and look them in the eye and ask them why you hate me so much, or etc. It just makes me more appreciative to not have to undergo that particular tragedy in my life. But I just commend him for that, and because I took a lot of guts. And may Dexter Scott King rest in peace. He passed away last year from cancer and did an awesome job on the King Center, and just want for everybody to stop disrespecting his pops, you know. But I will end this story with a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and you want to donate to the Cash App $, the 1804 show. All right, I'm out. Have a good night.
But
Peace.
later recanted, saying he was framed. Over the years, Ray has tried unsuccessfully to get a trial. Last February, the King family testified in Memphis to help reopen the case. An appellate court is now considering the request. Prison doctors have said without a liver transplant, Ray has only months to live, and no donor has been made available. That continues to heighten the King family's concern. Ray may never tell his version of the truth in court. After the meeting, King said it was a success.
I can now feel somewhat relieved that, you know, I heard with my own ears, I saw with my own eyes, not relying on a third party.
He said it was an experience the King family hoped would bring some closure, and Dexter King says for him, it did. Frederica Whitfield, NBC News, Nashville.
Dexter King, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Take me back to the moment when you reached out and shook James Earl Ray's hand. What was that like?
It was very moving, a feeling of relief to finally meet face-to-face with the man who has been accused, but has since, from the beginning, said he was innocent. I continue to hear that he confessed, and in fact, he didn't confess. He pled guilty, which is different, technically speaking.
So when you asked him, did you kill my father, in no uncertain terms, and he said, no, I did not, why do you believe him?
Well, I believe him because there's so much new evidence that has been presented to me and my family vis-a-vis his attorney, Bill Pepper. Also, the fact of the matter is, he has said from the beginning he was innocent. I asked him why he pled guilty. He said basically his attorney at the time cut a deal behind the scenes with the district attorney, and unbeknownst to him, he was forfeiting his rights to a trial. As soon as he found that out, 3 days later, he recanted and has since been trying to get a trial. So, spiritually speaking, I felt very moved by the meeting, because for me and my family, it brings us closer to the process of reconciliation, healing, and ultimately closure.
You mentioned your family. Your mother, Coretta Scott King, was not at the meeting. I'm sure you talked to her afterward. What was her impression?
Well, she felt it was a very courageous thing to do for all of us. I mean, I think spiritually speaking, my family was there. They were not there in the flesh, but or physically, but spiritually very much supportive. I think everybody felt proud of the fact that we were now closer firsthand, not through hearsay or third-party representatives, but closer to getting at this truth.
Dexter King's 1997 meeting with the man imprisoned for killing his father was a breakthrough in James Earl Ray's long fight to be heard. But many saw it as a bizarre, disturbing footnote to a great tragedy. 1 week after the meeting, on the eve of the 29th anniversary of the assassination, today's Matt Lauer spoke with Pulitzer Prize-winning King biographer David Garrow.
You said that the scene of James Earl Ray and Dexter King shaking hands was, quote, sad and surreal. Why?
Yes, Matt. I think it's very sad that the King family and the King children are so uninformed of the history that they could be open to believing that Mr. Ray was not involved in Dr. King's assassination. Mr. Ray was someone of long-standing racist, segregationist affiliations, and as the House Assassinations Committee very correctly concluded 19 years ago, Mr. Ray was probably the trigger man for a wider segregationist conspiracy to kill Dr. King.
But Dexter King and his family members are not the only people who've been asking questions for the last 29 years. If there are some doubts, why is it a betrayal to Dr. King's legacy to meet James Earl Ray face to face and at least try and get some answers to those questions?
Unfortunately, Matt, we can find people who will deny that slavery was bad for Afro-Americans. People will deny that the Holocaust happened in Europe. Unfortunately, people just don't have a good enough historical recollection of how many times, how thoroughly this has been investigated. Mr. Ray testified for 3 days on live national television in 1978, and I think it's fair to say, made a laughingstock of himself. Mr. Ray could tell the truth if he chose to.
All right, hang on for 1 second, because joining us now is Dexter King. Dexter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Mr. Garrow seems to think that you and your family members are being duped by James Earl Ray and his attorneys. What's your reaction?
Well, I am very disturbed by his comments that anyone in this day and age of victims' rights would suggest that it is wrong for a family to question who killed their loved one. The fact of the matter is, I guess I'm really not surprised, because Mr. Garrow, for whatever reason, is doing his job, and frankly, he is an agent for those forces of suppression who do not want this truth to come forward.
Unfortunately, the King family has not looked at the record that the House Assassinations Committee compiled 19 years ago. There's really no dispute among people that know this history well about Mr. Ray's guilt. The real questions that we should be pursuing and that Mr. King should be putting to Mr. Ray are who encouraged and who funded Mr. Ray to kill Martin Luther King Jr. That should be our focus.
Dexter?
I think what is really appalling here is that Mr. Garrow has built a platform on exploiting my father's legacy. If it were not for my family, Mr. Garrow would not have gained access to my father's papers and many other things that have given him a platform to speak out. And to now come back and say that we're misinformed is totally appalling.
What we have here, and what people need to remember, is that Mr. Ray, like other segregationist terrorists from the 1960s, did a tremendous amount of harm to the black freedom struggle. And for Mr. King to be misled into believing in mafia conspiracies is so unfortunately ignorant of the real history.
Dexter?
I met Mr. Ray. He is not a segregationist. I've met segregationists. This man was not born in the South as the media portrayed at the time. The fact of the matter is he was born in Illinois. I met his family. They are not people who strike me as racist. The fact of the matter is this man was set up. And we need to deal with this so that we can move on. The American public deserves the right to know. Certainly the family of the victim deserves the right to know what happened to their loved one. We need to stop living in denial in this country.
Dexter?
And for once and for all, face this injustice.
The Reverend Jesse Jackson agrees somewhat with Mr. Garrow in saying that James Earl Ray does not deserve a trial until he begins to tell the truth, among other things saying that Raoul never existed. Would you at least agree with that he does need to tell a little bit more of the truth before a trial is warranted?
Well, first of all, Raoul has been located. As I said, there are so many people who are talking about this case as if they're informed. They are the ones that are uninformed. They do not have the up-to-date latest information.
As with that other great tragedy of the 60s, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the death of Martin Luther King is a wound that will not heal. For some, there will always be a search for the latest information, the clues to a conspiracy, the evidence of some rationale to an otherwise senseless tragedy. Did James Earl Ray kill Martin Luther King? 30 years after the assassination, the third official investigation into the killing found that Ray did commit the murder and that he acted alone. What matters most, of course, is that King is gone. That's time and again for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jane Pauley, and we're history.